Hey, welcome to the Steve Davis Show. Special guest today is Adrian Ortega, Director of APS Athletics. And Adrian, hey, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, I tell you what, we were just talking. A year goes by quickly. I mean, we've been trying to get you on the show for about a year and a half, and you've just been busy.
Yeah, we're settling in, and we've made some positive changes, so we're in a good place.
Well, before we get to talking about APS, let's just talk about your coaching career, and you know, I want to thank you because it was a great honor for ProView to do your games and the way you treated ProView and really reached out to us and let us do your games.
Yeah, it was fun. 20 straight years. It's been a little bit different not coaching.
Let's talk about that road a little bit. Let's talk about that 20 years. Let's go back. I can go back to when I first met you. Was at Del Norte, and then it was then that just you just took off from there.
Well, I was actually a coach with Hamilton Doyle over at Los Tunas prior to Del Norte. So
see, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and ended up going with Todd Resch at Del Norte and Roy Sanchez at El Dorado. Lucky enough to win a state title as an assistant when Daniel Ferris and Andrew Cadillac and Derek and
so you just got that state championship got in your blood.
Yeah, that was good. It was a good group. Learned a lot from those coaches.
And then you go to Sandia and took my job.
Yeah, well, that was my first opportunity, which I was grateful to. Sandia. I was the head coach there for 4 years, and ended up going to Las Cruces for a year at Oñate. We were pretty good there. Now it was Oregon Mountain, and found my home at Atrisco Heritage for 13 years. And along the way, just coached some great kids, had a lot of built a lot of positive relationships. So it was a great 20 years of coaching.
Well, at Atrisco Heritage, I know you don't take accolades and all that, but for me, you developed it. You built a culture. Everybody talks about culture, and you've done it with student athletes. Yeah, and it just when district came, it was like you really didn't. It was almost like we've had these guys that I don't really care what I like to win, but if we don't win, it's about district and then district and then peaking at the right time. And I think you're out of all the coaches, you understood that better than anything. Let's peak at the right time.
Well, that was something I got from Joe Coleman at Valley. I had many conversations with some of these veteran coaches, Joe, and we didn't. Early in my career, we did a ton of things in the summer. We did a ton of preseason stuff, postseason stuff, and I found that early on we were peaking right before district. And you're talking to Joe Coleman, he's like, "We don't do anything." I'm like, "Come on, Joe, you got to do something."
I know it really.
I thought Joe was lying for years and years, and really, they played. It wasn't real structured, and we kind of followed that model. We did a lot of conditioning, and it worked out for us. The 2 years that we won state, and we were pushing. We were in the finals. We coached them really hard when the season started, and we did a lot of teaching. But beyond that, we didn't overdo it. Everyone says this, but I think kids get tired of their coaches, and I know that coaches get tired of their kids. If it's year round, you got to let them go. You got to let them play other sports. You got to let them be involved in school activities. It can be overwhelming if you overcoach.
Well, I tell you what, and you said the word, and I know you can't speak of all of them, but you had some great student athletes, and I think Ramos is one of my favorites of all the time. I'll never forget, his first time he got player of the game, and he had Adam Dill, and he said, "Look," his first statement was, "Look, I dreamed of being on here. This, and it was his freshman year, and he had an incredible game, but." And then the next 4 years, following his career, it was just so fun to see him win state championship, and you win state championships with that type of character.
Well, the interesting about that is Josiah was actually in our gym all the time. His mom was our dance coach from the very beginning, and prior to that, we had guys like Larry Baca, Philip LaCour, Patrick Rourke, Corbin Waukee, my son Adrian Ortega. We made it to the semifinals in 4A. We lost to Santa Teresa that year, and they won state, but we upset Grants, and then we beat Capital. I think we're a 12 seed, and Capital had the Mikey kid. They were loaded, but again, Josiah saw that at an early age, and we developed that culture. And by the time he got to us, he had already been around our program, and he just passed the baton on, along with my other son Diego was a point guard before him, and then we had DeMarcus Sutphin, and we just had we go on and on and on. But again, that early culture with those first group of kids, and bought in, no gym. We were practicing in a tent, didn't complain, and just hard nosed. And that came a lot from the community there in the South Valley, or Westgate Heights or Southwest Mesa, whatever they want to call themselves out there. But I just consider them a really strong blue collar community who I was fortunate enough to coach kids that were really coachable and tough, and they bought in.
You got to put those banners up the first time in the gym. That's got to be a great feeling. I can remember the days, when we did the state championships and when you won the game, just the community, the excitement, and in a way, I compare what you've done with the Trisco Heritage with what Jim Holzman did with with Albuquerque High, and you just have those followers, and you built that community, and it was just. I mean, when y'all played in the pit, that place filled up.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things I'm most proud of is we didn't take transfers. Those were our kids when they got to us freshman year.
You took a lot of pride in that. I mean, because every time I talked to you, it was like you didn't recruit, you didn't do this. This is our program. This is this is who we are.
And I kind of felt when I was at Sandia really relies on a lot of transfers. This is a transfer school. I mean,
I know that too.
They have to take transfers in order to keep their enrollment, in order to keep their FTEs. I get it. I understand the process. But however, I just didn't feel when I was there that there was 100% buy-in from Sandia Matadors. We had a couple kids come in from Manzano. We had some kids come in from Albuquerque High, and I just felt like if I had the opportunity to build all over again and start from scratch, it'd be a Trisco kids. And we had kids that didn't go to a Trisco 8th grade feeders, but they lived in the community. They were in private schools. They were in other schools, and quite frankly, we kept them there. And once we got them there, they stayed and they built. But we didn't. I felt strongly that we didn't want to take kids from other communities, other schools. We wanted to take our kids and see where it took us.
Well, and you left it in good shape. I mean,
I probably should have stayed one more year, Steve.
Right. I'm sure
2 more years.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's killing you. I mean, in a way. I mean, because you built a program, and it's still alive. I mean, the players, you have some players that you coached, and they're doing a great job.
And that's what's fun to see. We have 2 former players who are actually on the staff. And Steve Reddy has done a good job. He's kept the program in good standing. He's running the same stuff that I ran, and he has the same philosophy with discipline, character, and academics. So it's nice to see. And we have Marquise Crawford, who actually has 2 state titles with us. He's a JV coach, and everybody remembers Dom Rivas, the lights out shooter. He's helping out with the program as well. So that I'm glad that he was able to keep at least the players in the program coaching, and if you look at all successful programs, you have all those kids that come back. So it's nice to see.
Well, Steve Reddy, I tell you, what a class act. I just he came on my show just about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and just really talked about the good things that you and him. Y'all. It's hard sometimes for a head coach to become an assistant, but he really learned a lot from you, and was very appreciative of the things that he learned from you.
Yeah, we developed a friendship a long time ago. He was at Las Cruces High School with Benjamin and Coach Smith. I was at Oñate, and he was an assistant. And he went over to Chaparral, and he put in his time, he put in his dues. He was the head coach at Centennial, did a good job there. And when he was open and he was looking for a job, I thought it was a long shot to get him over here in Albuquerque, but we were able to get him a teaching job, and he fit right in. And he has the same core values that I have, and I kind of ultimately knew that if the director of athletic job opened, that I would be interested, and I did want to leave the program in good hands, so it worked out.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break, go to the Dream Style Top 10 Plays of the Week, and then come back and talk about your new job with APS.
Awesome.
Nelson, he's got 3 fouls, so he doesn't really want to be getting the ball.
Could be the dagger. That's
Gomez!
Inside.
Hostile gives it up. Shot is up. Oh!
Ball goes inside to Duke, guarded by Trujillo. Eli with the tip and the finish.
Schermerhorn on the drive. Yes, strong fit.
Got numbers.
1 second. She slips it in just a. Still some time. Montoya, plenty of room. Yes. Wide open long ball for Jason Montoya. Third. Out against the screen. Ball fake, but rejected. Boom. Rejects it. Quickly, or if they hold for the final. Wyckoff, yes, count the basket. A chance at a three-point play for Wyckoff, and a free throw is coming up.
Catch and shoot.
E. Hill, give it to the hot hand. Why not?
We're happy for the boys, and oh boy. I guess they knew about it.
One more.
Dream style stucco. Stucco is the way to go. A Southwest tradition, beautiful and durable. The perfect combination. Your favorite color, your favorite texture. You're gonna love it when they put it all together. Through any weather, nothing looks better. From the smooth to the rough, they really know their stuff. Nobody does stucco like Dream Style Stucco.
Hey, welcome back, Steve Davis Show. Adrian Ortega, Director of APS Athletics. And, well, great career. I just want to say thank you. It was fun doing your games. It was fun watching. It was fun, watching you in the huddle, watching you. And it was fun for me. I watched your whole career, how you changed, when you were younger, and then as you got older, and the things that you learned, and how much you matured over those years. That was, to me, that was so neat to see, and how you got respect of your players. And I don't know, and I, at one point, and I remember talking to your assistant Daniel, and when he kept stats of, you were like you and Benjamin were like for 10 years were like the top winningest coaches in the state of New Mexico.
Yeah, I remember Daniel saying that. And that's good, but the biggest thing is most of the kids a large percentage of the kids that we coached went on, and they either went to college or they got a really good paying job, and they're successful, and I'm able to keep those relationships intact, and that's really what it's all about. We got a lot of kids who keep in touch with me, got a lot of kids who keep in touch with Daniel, and at the end of the day, records are records, but the relationships you build is why we're in this business.
Well, then Kenny Barrera decides to retire, and kind of walk me. Tell me what perspired there. I mean, because I had no idea you wasn't going to coach anymore, and when I guess you put your name in the hat or whatever, and I guess things happened.
Well, 3 years prior to that, Daniel and I made a commitment to our kids that if we're going to push education to our kids and keep that standard high, we both just had a bachelor's degree, and quite frankly, I didn't really put much thought into a master's degree. But I said, you know what? Let's be the example for these kids. Let's be the example for these community. We're telling them to exceed academically, yet we're not pushing ourselves academically. So we went out and we enrolled at Eastern New Mexico, and I thought we were crazy at the time. And we were coaching, and we were taking master's classes, and we were sharing our experiences with the kids academically, and ended up getting my master's license. And my principal, Irene Cisneros, just said, why don't you go take your admin license? I said, you crazy, admin license? And, she just pushed me and encouraged me, and I took it and passed it, ended up with an admin license, and started to think about advancements and furthering my career, and that's when it started really gaining momentum. And like I said, didn't really see Kenny retiring or leaving. It was the middle of the year, but felt like the opportunity presented itself, and I had to jump all over it.
Well, and if I'm correct, and it was like the first of the year. If I'm in January, it was right around in January when you took over officially.
Actually, I interviewed prior to Thanksgiving, and was officially offered the job after Thanksgiving. We hadn't played a game yet, and Dr. Blakey, who's my direct boss, who has been amazing up there, she's been so supportive, couldn't ask for a better boss, allowed me to coach the first 3 games prior to leaving, which was against Los Tunas. Sandia High School at Sandia, we won at the buzzer, and then ended up coaching against Albuquerque at Albuquerque High, won convincing. So it was bittersweet, a lot of crying. It was very hard, very emotional, and it's still difficult. But again, just trying to keep pushing myself professionally and not get comfortable. So that's what we asked the kids to do as well.
Well, it opened up, and then in January it started, and then I think. Looking back, what was, going into it, what was your first, because it's in the middle of the year, so it's hard to, I'm thinking out loud right now, but I'm going to say if it's in the middle of the year, most of the things are set in stone at that point.
Well, I was fortunate because we had a couple individuals who really, they got compensated, but didn't get compensated much. They were basically volunteering their time. And Joe Butler, who's a legend in New Mexico regarding the athletic administration, and then Leslie Kilmer, who came over from Santa Fe, and it kind of was like an in-between myself and Kenny, just to keep the department running. And they did a fabulous job of, getting this helmet reconditionings going, some of the schedules that weren't done, some of the metro events that weren't done. So once I got there, I was in a pretty decent place. And I was also able to hire my own staff, which was huge for me. I was able to bring Mike Houston over, who's been in education for 35 years. He does most of our scheduling. He does a lot of our work with the stadiums, with the stadium managers. And I was able to bring my assistant from Atrisco, who was an assistant principal at the time, Daniel Leyva, over. And of course, we had Adam Basinger, who was a coordinator there at the time, and Tracy Seckler, because we oversee activities as well. And she's the direct point contact for activities, who has a wealth of knowledge and experience. So once I got my team together, things just started falling in place.
Well, I tell you, when you come into that, how did it feel when you first walked into that, your first day, when you walked into the office and you're thinking, and you got so many things on your plate, what was your first priority at that point?
I was overwhelmed, scared, second guessing my decision. As you know, when you're talking about 13 high schools and 29 middle schools, we had middle school basketball going, hot and going, and it was very intimidating. But just took it as, hey, we first time being a head coach, first time in that classroom, same experience, same feeling, and how we're going to get this thing going. Let's get organized. Let's get this ball rolling. So once we got it going again, my first priority was hiring my team, and then the second priority was let's evaluate what's working for APS, and let's evaluate what's not working, and let's implement some changes that we feel that we can get done.
And I think, as you said, I never thought about that. It was like going into you being a head coach the first time, and really, as assistant coach, it's pretty easy. As we both know, it's pretty easy. When you become the head coach, then all of a sudden you have to deal with so many other things that you're not used to. Sometimes you don't even get to coach. You're always dealing with administration or dealing with parents or dealing with the flu or grades, or there's always something that really can distract the team. And so when you came into this, what were your feedback? What was your first thing that you really wanted to get accomplished?
Well, like I said, it's just so big. It's huge. We're a huge district, and if you try and tackle everything at once, it's impossible. So we identified a couple of areas. One of the things that the athletic directors felt strongly about, myself included, when I was at Atrisco Heritage, was scheduling. We never had any input. We didn't have autonomy to schedule games. So we gave the school athletic directors autonomy to schedule games for their schools within APS parameters. We're restricted budget-wise. We can't just go off the cuff and say, go schedule who you want. But we're able to put some parameters out, and as long as you're within these parameters, make a schedule. Secondly, I felt strongly, being in the district of Rio Rancho, that we were in a competitive disadvantage because our 8th graders were never allowed to compete. And if you look at sports like wrestling, cross country, softball, baseball, where typically our numbers aren't real high across the board, and Rio Rancho's is, they were able to use those lightweights for wrestling, for example, as 8th graders. So we took that to upper leadership, and we took Dr. Blakey, took it to Scott Elder and the cabinet, and they approved it. Another thing that we did is we felt like our kids needed some exposure out of state. And everybody talks about club exposure, club this, and it does make sense. And now every one of our APS schools for every sport has the autonomy to do site-based funding to travel out of state, to get one out-of-state competition if they choose to. Another thing we changed is in basketball, for example, we were never allowed at the 26 max games. We were always at 24. We gave those games back to the schools. And I quite frankly, I felt like it hurt some of our schools in seeding because, for example, again, Rio Rancho had the max amount of games. One of the criteria is number of wins. So they had the opportunity for 2 more competitions in baseball,
So your percentage is
softball.
gonna be-
Percentages went up. So that's been real successful. And like I said, the only obstacle that we faced was the question of equity with low SES schools and high SES schools, socioeconomic status schools. However, I came from a low SES school, and I had our basketball team in San Diego, Arizona, Denver. I mean, you raise the bar, and I'm going to meet it. Money aside, we're not going to let that be an obstacle. We'll find a way to find the money. We don't have to charge kids. We'll find the way, and we did. And what I'm finding now is, for example, a Trisco Heritage Dance Team fundraised and they went to Florida for a competition. Albuquerque High was out of state for a competition. La Cueva's out of state for a competition with their dance team and their spirit team. So, across the board, I feel like if you raise the bar, regardless of where you live, coaches will meet that standard. Educators will meet that standard. Kids will meet that standard.
Well, I tell you, very impressive, and I, now a new one just came up this last week, and I know ProView is excited, and Game Vision you worked out a contract with Game Vision, and we got to do our first games last night.
That's awesome. I just I wish the process would have went faster. However, again, when I got this job, there was some cameras in place throughout the district from the National Federation of High School and FHS networks. Looking into it, there wasn't a legal contract signed by the district. Just to give people some background, Albuquerque Public Schools has sole rights to sign district contracts through the procurement office. In other words, school principals, athletic directors, coaches, they have no authority to sign on behalf of the district. They're a part of the school. And that was a learning curve for me. I didn't know. I felt like, hey, we just go get it done. And when I presented it to Dr. Blakey, she said, well, that's a great idea, but we got to go through the process. Got the ball moving, went through the procurement, and had to go through an RFP process. And that was the holdup. But, long story short, we did it the right way. We have a signed contract. It's legal. It's signed by the appropriate personnel. And now we're off and running. Like I said, I just regret the time of it. But I don't regret the fact that we did it the right way, and now it's all on the up and up.
Well, I tell you, the welcoming, right? And I spoke to you. It was, I got to do my first APS game, and I love basketball. There's no, I for the last 15, 16 years, I've devoted my life, to sports, and APS is part of my life. And last night, actually, it's kind of emotional. It was like, wow, it was kind of overwhelming to see the people that came up and talked to me and said, hey, I'm glad to see you guys back. And so that and I want to thank you and for letting us get to be back and doing the games. And it's a work in progress, but last night went smooth.
Well, I think it's a win-win not only for Game Vision, ProView, and Albuquerque Public Schools. The contract was a fair contract. We're going to benefit. APS Athletics is going to get benefit for the next 3 years financially with a return of $60,000 annually,
or more.
Or more with some subscriptions. Hopefully with a campaign of advertising this, we can get as much as the sky's the limit. And on top of that, our site-specific schools have the opportunity to gain financially with some advertisement opportunities, if they choose so. We'll have some spots if they want to put some advertisement, and the district is not going to take any of that. We're giving that to the schools. If they want to be aggressive and go get some advertisement, then we're gonna accommodate that and help the schools with that as well. So I think it's a win-win. I think that the community, once they see the final product with cameras and the type of cameras that are going to be installed, I think there's going to be a lot of people impressed.
And correct me, is all the gyms are going to have, there's going to be 13 gyms with cameras, and then softball, baseball, and also the soccer field, and then also the football fields.
Correct. And the soccer complex as
And
well.
soccer complex. But it won't be at the APS, just at the soccer complex, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Well, I tell you, that's, and my understanding is that there's up to 35. It's going to be C team, JV, and varsity year round.
That's what's in the contract. That's what was signed, and we're really excited about that. What I've learned through this process is that we do have a large amount of families that were raised or live in this community that have family members who no longer live in this state, who really felt like they wanted access to our games, and we listened to them. We have parents that live outside of the United States and Mexico and other places, Germany, people who are stationed in the military, expressing their concern about, hey, I need to see my family members. So again, listening to them and being able to accommodate their needs is important to us.
Well, with that being said, I give you some, pro views in 50 states and 137 countries.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's impressive.
I mean, and you talk about, you're proud about being, pushing yourself. I'm proud about, you go back to ProView. It didn't have a scoreboard. It didn't have a score. We didn't even have a score on it. So we've got the score, and then we didn't have a clock, and then we didn't have instant replay. We didn't get all of a sudden we weren't on TV. I mean, it's been it's something that my staff that's been with me most of these years have actually, it's not Steve Davis that got this done. It was my staff that got it done, and I think I'm proud of that more than anything, to see the level of broadcast with the economics that we're dealing with, what we put out.
It's a good model. You surround yourself with good people, and good things will happen. Loyal people, hardworking people, and that's what I have in my office. I'm very fortunate, and again, I'm glad that the procurement office signed this deal. It's a good deal for the district. And I'm glad that we were able to get this streaming up and running again. I know we took a lot of hits on Twitter, and we took a lot of hits on social media from people. And quite frankly, I know that's today's world, but these things take time. There is a process, and as you know, we're not allowed to speak on these things while there's negotiations taking place. So that was a little bit frustrating. However, I'm just glad it's over, and we're moving forward.
And my only issue with the thing is people spoke without knowing the facts.
Absolutely.
And that's, like you said, if you know the facts, that's one thing. I think you're big enough to handle that. But when people are saying things that just weren't true, that's it affected ProView networks. I know it affected the APS, but the thing is, it's done, and we're rolling, and kids are, the biggest thing is we're getting, our student athletes the exposure and the coaches that they deserve in a positive way. And I'm telling you, we got like a minute left, and I was going to hit other things, but just what's on your next horizon now?
Well, the initiatives that I spoke earlier, we're going to move those initiatives towards fall and winter sports. So what we did, for example, with the travel, out-of-state travel, and those type of initiatives, is we offered it to the spring sports first, and then Spirit, because those are the ones that lost that COVID year. So we're like, let's see how this works out. So again, to answer your question, is implementing these initiatives, kind of see what's working, what's not working, make it better, and then identify what we got to do moving forward from there.
Well, Adrian, thanks for coming on the Steve Davis Show, and it's great to be back with APS.
Well, thanks for having me. Let's do it. Let's keep going.